Make sure we're recording, and now we'll let folks in. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. Welcome, one and all. Good to see everyone. Sorry, we're getting off to a little bit of a late start here, but we're ready to roll now. So it's good to see you. Great to have you all here. And yeah, we have yet again a wonderful guest this week. Lots of participants I see streaming in here, so that's great to see you all. And I will get us started since we're starting late. I'll just give the intro and then we'll get rolling. So welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. This is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, cutting edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. And remember that we are going to have a convention coming up in September. Very exciting. And we're going to do an interesting setup that we've gotten votes for from you all, which I think you're going to like because you all voted. We just listened to what you might like. So we're actually going to do a 3-day conference. We're going to spread it over 3 weeks. So you only have to commit to 1 day each week for 3 weeks. It'll be a Thursday of the first week, Friday the next week, Saturday of the next week. So you can work around that, and not feel overwhelmed by a full convention schedule. And then we're going to do something else really interesting. Along with that convention, we're going to do a concurrent set of conventions. And in the first week, we're going to do a convention for piano teachers. We all like to work alongside of piano teachers because, we can complement each other's services. And so we're going to create a special day of lessons for piano teachers as well, and try to integrate our two groups a little bit as part of that. Then the next special day is one for musicians, piano players. And in that case, we're going to try to get some interesting folks to do some lessons and offer insights on how to optimize your piano playing or do something cool as a musician. And then on the third week, we're going to do a complimentary session that is going to be all about the piano industry. So we can learn about the different brands of pianos and everything going on in the piano industry. So it's looking to be like a really big, fun event. So keep tuned in and I'll update you on how you can sign up for that and get involved. So without further ado, I'll introduce our guest today. His name is Chris Brown. Chris Brown, he's a registered piano technician of Grandwork Tools. He started his career as a piano technician in 1977. He's one of the leading piano techs who's mastered various skills like concert tuning, rebuilding, and teaching. He is also a college technician, private customer piano care provider, along with being a designer, engineer, and manufacturer. All that engineering and designing, despite the fact that he told me his math is doesn't go much far beyond his what he learned in grade school and high school. He said he looked out the window most of the time, so that's great. You can do a lot with that level of math, and I think some of us don't even take advantage of what we've learned, I guess. And Chris has done a wonderful job. So actually, why don't we start off by going into that a little bit? I was fascinated. We were just talking beforehand, and you kind of made this offhand comment, like, you didn't feel like you were some master of math or something like that. But then I was pairing that with how you've created engineering projects, and that I think I myself would be intimidated by designing and producing these things. How do you think those things go together?
I think all piano technicians are somewhat gifted at math, but that's not to say that they studied hard and weren't looking out the window when they should have been paying attention.
Got it.
Somehow my son got himself into an advanced group in middle school, and he did all the great math, and the best sections of the sciences, whereas I was just kind of bored by it. But anyway, applying what math I do have which is, I suppose, high school geometry and algebra mostly. Um, I I hit upon this idea of it's not. I'm not the only person to have this idea, and there might well be a better version of it out there. But I have a monthly. I try and make it monthly blog on my website, and the last one involved creating a simple mathematical model for the workings of a grand action. And not with a view of being able to put in my measurements and come out with the exact whatever, but with a view of understanding better what happens when I change the leverage in any one or a couple of the three levers involved in a grand action. So the three levers are the key, and you measure from somewhere on the key top. And that is an interesting problem because the finger plays where it plays and the lever changes with that. So in that simple lever, it's like a seesaw. You've got a fulcrum in the middle of the key, but in terms of leverage, it's not the middle. And you measure from the top of the key top, wherever you decide that's going to be, down to the balance hole, the middle of the balance hole on the underside of the key, then up to the surface of the capstan. So from the key top to the balance hole is your effort arm, and from the balance hole to the capstan is your resistance arm. In the whipping, you have sort of a complicated thing, but simplifying it down to how the geometry pretty much works. You have from the capstan / whip and heel to the whip center, and then from there to the tip of the jack. And from the capstan to the whip center is your effort arm, and from the center to the jack is your resistance arm. And then on top of that, of course, is the hammer shank, hammer and hammer shank. And that measures from the contact point on the
knuckle
on the knuckle,
or wait, there's yeah,
to the center, and then from the center to the crown of the hammer. And so I chased my tail round and round with measuring that, and I turned them into leverages by dividing the resistance by the effort arms. So from the crown of the hammer to the center, if you divide that by the distance from the center to the contact point on the knuckle, you get a ratio. So my idea was that you take the weight of the hammer and you multiply it by this number, and that is the weight that's going down through the knuckle. So everything above the knuckle, I call the hammer resistance, and then you go down the next step and you have a ratio that is what it is, and that goes to the key, and then the keys ratio, and the numbers weren't coming out. So I was out of town as I was thinking about this, and when I came back to the shop, I took some measurements out in action, and I can show you. Let's see if I can just walk you over there. Where are you? Here.
yeah, we're getting there.
A bunch of junk in behind it, but if you can see, I've got two vices, and one I've set up with a couple of just wooden blocks so it would reach, and I grabbed the hammer shank with that, and the other is holding the whipping. And so I went through a series of measurements, not all in this disposition, but along the way, I realized that uh, the leverage in the shank doesn't apply to the weight of the shank, or at least not equally. You know, if you were going to take, you'd have a whole series of leverages as you came back to the shank, back up the shank to that center. So I weighed the shank, and it's tricky weighing these things, but I weighed it so that it was virtually horizontal, and added that to the hammer weight times its leverage, the shank leverage. And then I did the same thing with the whipping. I weighed the whipping as it was held in a vise, i.e. by its rail, and added that to the hammer resistance, which is the shank plus the, anyway,
Is this a
and
quick
anyway,
question?
when I got to the other end,
Is
the
this a
numbers
blog
came.
post that you finished posting? Is that up right now?
Yeah, it's on my website,
What's the
grandwork.tools.
what's the title of it? I'll make sure and give people a link to it.
Well, the title that you might see is Weighing Off the Grand Action Part 7.
Okay, yeah, got it. Cool.
So it's kind of a fun enterprise. And, you know, I haven't really gotten to the point yet. At the end of the article, I've taken one example and run it through and show you how raising the hammer weight and lowering the hammer weight translates through this math at the other end. Now, in real work, say you have hammers that have been filed a couple of times, and that's what you're stuck with because people don't have the budget to replace the hammers. Those hammers are very light compared to the original hammers. That changes the weigh off. So depending on what the original weigh off was, it could be that you have a problem with upweight. How about, and I have a couple of these in hand at the moment, you have an action that was rebuilt by somebody or new parts were put in by somebody, or is this very old and compressed and the geometry has changed that way. All of these scenarios, and really an action from the time it leaves the factory, it's in a state of settling and compressing, and that geometry is changing. And so what we get may work adequately well. We have a kind of a window of what's acceptable. And certainly when you're preparing for a concert, you get the note that's sticking, not sticking, and the buzz solved, and that sort of thing. But I find myself at this point in my career being able to say, you know, this is what I propose under these circumstances with the parts that you have. And it's not as inexpensive as you'd like, but otherwise we're going to, you know, it's like opening up an old house. Once you get the sheetrock, the plaster off the walls, you discover stuff you didn't know about. You might have suspected, but it is what it is.